This episode of the podcast is sponsored by our friends at Market Source Real Estate, Five Wives Vodka, and Wizarding Days. We're going to be telling you more about all them throughout this episode.
Let's welcome everybody out today to a brand new episode of I Am Salt Lake Podcast. If this is your first time listening and you're like, what is this podcast I'm listening to? What did my friend tell me to download? Well, this is a podcast all about showcasing awesome people right here in Salt Lake City. We talk to musicians, we're talking to authors, we're talking to business owners, restaurant owners, breweries, distilleries. I mean, I can keep going. I think you guys get the idea, though. We're really talking to anyone that might have a cool story to share. So I want to welcome everybody out today to episode 365. My name is Chris. I am across the table now from my awesome co-host, Christina. How are you doing over there? I could see you through the...
I'm doing fantastic. We can see each other through the equipment. I am excited for this episode with Jeff Evans. We get to sit down and talk with him about his ska band Insatiable. We get to find out their history and what they're up to these days. And we also get to talk to Jeff about his social media marketing and giving back to the community. It's such a good conversation that we're going to be having here in just a minute.
I was really excited to sit down with Jeff because I remember in some of my early days living here in Utah, well, when I first moved here, going to see Insatiable. So it's exciting to kind of see their growth and where they've come throughout, the last 30 years, really.
Yeah.
But we're recording today in beautiful downtown Salt Lake City in our podcast studio located right in the back of Empire Merchandise. Empire Merchandise is located at 680 South State Street. Now, not only does Empire have an amazing selection of vape juice and vape accessories, but this is where you can come and get your hands on your very own I Am Salt Lake podcast t-shirt. So stop in, check it out. This is a really great addition to downtown Salt Lake City.
And if you're not in the area, you can also go get your own I Am Salt Lake t-shirt at iamsaltlake.com. While you're there, you can dig through the entire catalog of episodes. You can listen to any episode that you want. You can subscribe to the podcast so you'll never miss an episode. And you can visit our events calendar to see what's going on in Salt Lake.
Hey, before we get into this conversation with Jeff Evans that I'm really excited to play for you guys, we want to tell you about one of our awesome sponsors for this episode, Wizarding Days. Wizarding Days is an interactive fantasy event with roving actors, magical sets, crafts and activities, non-stop entertainment, and classes by artisans and professionals. This is actually their third annual. It's happening February 22nd and 23rd at the Mountain America Expo Center.
And this year, Wizarding Days is excited to bring the Arthurian legend Camelot to life with live-action role players, a round table, and a giant dragon. It's going to be fun for all ages. Wizarding Days brings your favorite books to life. And tickets are on sale now at wizardingdays.com.
One thing also, make sure you're following us on Instagram as we're going to be giving away some free passes for Wizarding Days right there on our Instagram account. You're going to want to check this out, but make sure to pick up your tickets now if you can, as they're on sale and they are cheaper if you buy them in advance. Again, their website is wizardingdays.com. That's days with a Z. Go check it out. And many thanks to Wizarding Days for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. All right, here's that conversation with Jeff Evans when he came and sat down with us to share his story. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy. Now, did you grow up here in Salt Lake City, or where's home for you?
Murray.
So have you ever ventured away from the area?
I lived on 10th East and 4th South when I went to the U.
So that was the most venturing out you did.
Well, as in my band, I did a tour across the USA and Canada and multiple times. So you got experience. I'm well traveled, but have I lived outside of freaking Salt Lake County? No.
And that's actually amazing that you have, because it seems like all of us, when we're about 18, 19 years old, we venture out. We're like, I got to get out of Salt Lake City. I got to get out of Utah.
Well, I had a different experiences because my family owned a family business, 2 family businesses in Murray. And I just kind of got sucked into that routine and helping the family out. And it became natural. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. I mean, things changed and things have changed now. And I'm actually, now that I'm empty nester, I'm looking for major league change coming up. So, But as of right now, I have not lived more than
A few blocks
from Murray, Utah.
There's a lot of respect there, man. There's a lot of respect. Now, what was the family businesses, if you don't mind me asking?
My family owned a furniture store in Murray for 40 years, and we also owned a fast food drive-in called Take 5 Drive-In off on 53rd, just east of State Street.
Take 5. I don't know if I've ever. Are they still there?
No. My dad was extremely frugal. The 2008 crash really damaged our furniture store because nobody was buying what I would say discretionary income type things. You know, if you lost your job and all of your pension, you'll just let the couch go, you know, a little while longer.
And everybody was losing homes, so they didn't have
yeah. So, but luckily they built the mother of all hospitals across the street from us, the IMC hospital. And at that time, that became a regional hospital where people would come from Wyoming or Eastern Idaho or Nevada, because that was the hospital, but they had nowhere to stay. So anyway, long story short, where both of our family businesses were is now a 7-story Marriott hotel. So.
Oh, wow.
Very cool. But you probably, you got an opportunity to work in them, and it kind of gave you that work ethic, I'm sure. Or no?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was freaking 6 days a week. So 6 days a week. Plus I also eventually became the face of the family, as you know, my dad headed more towards retirement. So I'm the one who became president of the Murray Rotary Club, on the board of directors of the Murray Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, again, 9 years on Planning and Zoning Commission of Murray City, Economic Development Council of Murray City. So all of that stuff, plus working 6 days a week, and in 2 active bands at the time too. So,
are you still pretty heavily involved with like the Rotary Club and all of those type of things?
Those type of things you like. You do your time and you do your service and then you back off. And I've taken some time off of that, but I'm very proud to be on Murray City's Arts Advisory Council, and our first meeting is on January 15th. So I'm looking forward to messing some shit up over there.
I love it. Let's kind of jump forward a little bit to Insatiable, just because.
Why? Because you can't get enough?
Well, so
can I tell you, you haven't actually introduced me yet.
Well, we're going to introduce you in the beginning of the podcast.
Okay. Well, I had a good joke.
Oh, well, you had it. Okay. Well,
anyway, I'm not going to set it up now. I'm just going to say, Chris, I've listened to your podcast and I'm so happy to be here. I am so excited that I could almost blow .05.
Bazing.
I love it. You'll
be able to when we're finished.
After you're done with that beer, you better not be driving.
Well, that's when my handler comes in. Yeah.
I love it. You have your own private chauffeur with you today.
Exactly.
No,
yes. It's a smart move.
We're gonna obviously introduce you here when we go back and add an introduction to it, Jeff. But so Jeremy Higginson, a mutual friend of ours, reached out to me and he said, "Hey, did you ever listen to the ska band Insatiable?" Right. And well, of course, right? Especially living, I spent many years in my younger days in Utah County.
Well, I'm sorry about that.
Which was like, in my opinion, the ska capital of the world at that time.
In the 90s, it definitely was. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of good ska being played there. And so, how long have you been, or when did you start with Insatiable? Let's go back into the history there.
Well, the history, if you want to know the super history. First of all, the name Insatiable, which I thought was kind of cool because, it means can't get enough. That's which I, couldn't get enough of good music. So there's two things about that. So in junior high school, I saw an ad for a Maryland Chambers pornographic movie called Insatiable. And I thought, wow, that would be a good name for a band.
For a Provo, Utah band.
No, this is Salt Lake County.
Because Insatiable, Salt Lake, they just play in Provo.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we would never.
Look, I don't know. I was in the 90s. I was in Wisconsin in high school, so.
We played Wisconsin, so there you go.
Did you?
Yes, I did, twice.
So you kind of helped come up with the name of the band then?
No, I did. This is my band. I came up with it, period.
Okay, I apologize. Mm-hmm. I guess I don't know all the history, so you got to educate me here, Jeff.
So basically, the early thing is in high school, I was a saxophone player.
Okay.
And I wanted to start a band that I could play in, being a saxophone player that had horns. So I discovered my all-time favorite band was The Police, and I loved the the offbeat, what they call the skank in ska music, that the groove that Andy Summers did in The Police. And then I did more research and I discovered like the Specials and the English Beat and all the two-tone bands with the horn sections. And then, you know, the reggae music with the horn sections. And it's like, all right, I'm going to do that because it's happy, fun music. It's not, oppressed, angst, young teenage male music. It's actually happy, positive music. And I get to play my horn in it. So,
and it's more interesting, isn't it? Like even like musically more interesting.
Well, you can, and it's just fun to play. It's just fun to play. Mm-hmm. That's all. And that's why I'm still doing it today. I mean, what was that? I'm 18, 17 years old, and here I am a week away from being 52. I'm still doing it.
What did they say? 30 years, right? Insatiable, 30 years?
Well, I would say 2 incarnations, because there's the band I did call Insatiable in high school that I was just finding myself and trying to start a band. And we played all sorts of things, including starting some ska and writing our own material. But then that kind of went away after, you know, we graduate from high school and everybody goes their own way. And then about 1991 is when I started meeting at the U, some of the current members. Well, basically all of the current members. I mean, it's actually pretty impressive that when you see us play next, which we're lining up a series of shows for 2019, that you will see people that have been with me since 1991.
Wow.
Is it all the original members?
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. It's incredible that you're all still here in Utah, really, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
A lot, you know.
And still dedicated to it. I mean, that's hard to keep everyone on the same page for that long, too.
Well, it is. I mean, and I'll admit, like, we will take a year off, which we have. Some people might say that we only play in odd years because we did a series of shows in 2017 that culminated with us headlining the last day of the Utah Arts Festival, which was fabulous. And then all of 2018, you know, I concentrated on my business and other things, and everybody did their own things and did other bands and whatever. And now, you know, I just talked to everybody, and my first rehearsal with Insatiable at my house is Tuesday, and I'm stoked.
So wait, everybody's going to come to your house to record?
Oh no, just to
not record, but to practice.
Yeah, just to blow the dust off the sucker.
How many people play? I mean, because ska bands are not just 3-piece set or 4-piece.
We're going to have for this run of shows. This was just confirmed last night. We will have an 8-piece band.
Is that tough when you have so many members?
Yes, it's hurting cats.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Because
especially the more adult life you get into, the more you have to organize everybody's calendar and schedule, and it just like it's impressive
that's very true. But on the flip side, I've recently become an empty nester, as some of the other guys in my band are getting the ages where their kids are more than self-sufficient, and they don't have the level of responsibilities day to day with their kiddos that we used to.
See, I told you it gets better. I've been telling Chris it gets better.
We have a
1.5-year-old.
Yeah, about 1.5, and I'm like, does this ever get any easier?
Yeah. So my daughter's 24. She's a fabulous artist in Portland, and my son's 20. So I'm now free to do whatever the hell I want to, and that includes being in a rock band again. Why not?
Do they play music at all? Your kids?
No, but they have their own creative things. Well, I'll take that back. My son has his second, for example, DJ gig at this place called the Loading Dock. Have you ever been there?
Oh, here in Salt Lake? Yeah. No, I know exactly.
Yeah, he has an act called John Skirt, and he does his beats. What does he call it? Dubstep? Yeah. So
I'm not that familiar with all that stuff. Well,
I'm learning too, but it's fantastic. He's doing a good job. My daughter is a fabulous artist. I mean, off the hook fabulous artist. And she moved to Portland because she thought that would be a better
fit for her.
Fit for the type of art she does, and she's been flourishing there. And yeah, in fact, if you notice my Facebook page, I just posted that the Deseret News did this big article about Ben McAdams moving out of his office and going to Washington, D.C. And I would say about 75% of the pictures in that story had my daughter's Ben bus rendering that he commissioned her to do, of him holding it or talking behind it. And And I thought it was cool that my daughter's art's going to Washington.
Yeah.
Along
That's
with band.
rad.
What do they think of Dad playing in a ska band?
Oh, well, they grew up with it.
Yeah.
That's all they know. I mean, in fact, especially back in the 90s, Salt Lake was a good, even if you didn't have a gig, it was a stopping point. If you were going, say, from Denver to San Francisco or Denver or, anyway, it was a good in the middle point. So even if I couldn't find a band to gig, especially here in the 90s on a Sunday or a Monday, I would still allow them to crash or take a shower, do their laundry at my house. Because it was kind of a brotherhood in the sense of, or a network of bands that I know if I did that, I could go to their towns.
Sure.
When we were on tour and crash at their places and stuff like that. Getting back to your original question, both my kids had no problem waking up in the morning, being third and sixth graders, and walking over ska band bodies that are crashed out on the living room floor on the way to the school bus.
No, and I'll tell you,
Just preparing them for college.
Exactly.
It's actually a lot of fun. Back in the day, I mean, I used to listen to a lot of punk rock, and so I would do the same thing. When bands would play DV8 Basement, especially, right? And you're like,
Play there.
A lot of times they were looking for a place to sleep. Hey, come and let's, and then you have an all night party a lot of times.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that was, a lot of the road trips we took, we had 8 people in the band at that time. And when we showed up, some places we were set up really nice and we had places to sleep and all that sort of thing well in advance. But other places, just kind of on the fly. And we get to the gig and we're like, okay, everybody, we have 8 chances to go meet somebody to find somewhere to sleep tonight. So
is that still a popular thing? Maybe not popular isn't the word to use, but it seems like all the bands nowadays have tour buses.
Oh, no. That's just the higher end ones.
And maybe it's just the music I listen to these days.
There are bands scrapping out there that are driving around in shitty Chevy vans like we did with a rented trailer behind it, just doing their best, working day to day.
And hoping that they can make it to the
it.
next gig, man.
Exactly.
I remember we had a band spend the night, and then they ended up staying for a week because their transmission blew out on them.
Yeah.
And so they had to get they had to come up with the funds first to fix the transmission. And so I had people for like a week at the
I was lucky
house.
that none of our tours did we have any horrific mechanical failures in the van. So knock on wood, but I'm not going to.
All right, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by the very delicious, the very local, and the very tasty Five Wives Vodka. The next time you head on over to this state liquor store, pick up a bottle of Five Wives Vodka. The next time you head on over to your neighborhood bar, ask for Five Wives Vodka by name. Not only are they a delicious vodka, but they are the official beverage of I Am Salt Lake podcast. So every time you're buying a bottle of Five Wives vodka, every time you're taking a shot, you are supporting this podcast. They have 3 different flavors. Christina and I are going to tell you about them. They have the original Five Wives vodka. This is the one that's made from Utah mountain spring water. It's 100% distilled corn spirit and it's gluten-free. Spring is hidden in beautiful Ogden Canyon. It's inaccessible by vehicle, so they're hiking this water out 5 gallons at a time.
And if you haven't tried the original flavor, you're totally missing out. But they also have some more. Five Wives Sinful is a flavored vodka with a delicious cinnamon taste. It's not like other cinnamon products that give you that cinnamon candy taste that lingers in your mouth. Sinful is like a morning cinnamon roll, and it's only 76 calories per ounce.
They also have the Five Wives Heavenly. This is one of their flavored vodkas, but with a delicious vanilla taste. Heavenly's rich, buttery vanilla flavor, it comes through without coating your taste buds with sugar, and this results in more vanilla and less calories. Remember, next time you head over to the state liquor store, what are you going to do? You're going to pick up a bottle of Five Wives vodka. Next time you head over to the neighborhood bar, you say, pour me a shot of Five Wives vodka. And the next time you're at home and you're just bored and you're surfing the internet, you're going to type in Five Wives Vodka right there in your browser. You're going to check it out, learn more about them, and you're going to tell them, hey, thank you for sponsoring I Am Salt Lake Podcast. This episode of the podcast is also sponsored by Market Source Real Estate. I know we have a lot of listeners. You guys are looking to move to Salt Lake City, whether it's for a job transfer or you just want to be closer because we're here. Well, this is when you need to track down our friends Monique and Jeremy Higginson of Market Source Real Estate.
Especially if you're like us and you love the older homes in the greater Salt Lake area. For the last 17 years, that's what Monique and Jeremy have been helping people find. They have a background of flipping houses, and they've owned almost 24 homes themselves, so they know all the ins and outs of these older, beautiful homes.
However, if you're looking to sell your home, Market Source Real Estate specializes in helping sellers update or even repair their homes to increase their value, and which is going to make you guys more money. So if you're looking to buy an old home, they know what to look for in older homes. If you're looking to sell your home, they know how to help you out. What is their website that they can go to, Christina?
If you want to talk to Monique and Jeremy, which you do, you can find them at thinksaltlakecity.com today or call them at 801-810-6773.
And as always, many thanks to Market Source Real Estate for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Let's get back to that conversation with Jeff Evans. Thanks for listening. What's the difference? I mean, the music scene in Salt Lake City in the 90s versus today. A lot of people, because you have to remember, I don't know, all the listeners of this podcast, they might have moved here. They might even be a younger generation. So they didn't get to experience music in Salt Lake City in the 90s, even the early 2000s. I mean, we're 2019 here, Jeff. A lot has changed.
I know.
In Salt Lake City.
It's been 20 years since we partied since it was 1999. Right?
I remember that.
Do you think it's that different, or do you think it's just that we've grown up and now?
No, I think it's definitely different.
It's horribly different.
I actually feel sorry for the new up and coming bands right now because I think there's much less opportunity than there was when I was flourishing at our height.
Why do you think that that was?
Well, number one, fewer places to play. And I also think with a few definite exceptions, like the State Room or the Commonwealth Room, I think there's a lot of venues that bands play that it's not a destination to see the band. The band is an afterthought. And so that's why I wouldn't want to play those type of places. I want to play a place where we are the focal point. The music is the focal point, not us and the pool table and the poker game and the game on the TVs and all that sort of thing. But just honestly, I just don't think there's as many places or opportunity for bands, up and comers anyway, to play here. Then I've also noticed so back in the day in Los Angeles, bands would have to pay to play.
I think bands still do that.
Yeah. Well, in LA at the time, I had a good friend of mine who had a 80s hair band in LA, and they would have to sell X amount of tickets in advance of their show. And I've seen that's been implemented in certain clubs around here, that they will give bands tickets to sell in advance of their show, and that's how they get paid. And I can see the idea behind that and why they would do that. But also I feel that there's a certain inherent responsibility of the club owners and their marketing departments to do a level of marketing of their own. I mean, I understand that the band needs to tell all of their friends and get everybody out, but to add, I mean, the band's already responsible for the music and the showmanship and all of that sort of thing. And then to add, ticket sales on top of that, I think is a little bit unfair, but that's just kind of old school. Cause when I was an up and coming band, I never had to deal with that ever.
Yeah. You would just show up and
we would show up, but I would design flyers and we would get the word out and we would pack the place, but I didn't have to have that mental thing of they just gave me 200 tickets and I have to move these during the same time that I should be rehearsing and getting ready to put on the best product I can for the people that show up to the gig.
I wonder if that's more of a movement in general, because I know comedy venues kind of do the same thing with up-and-coming comedians, where it's like, if you don't fill the place, then we'll pull your
But that shouldn't be the person's responsibility. That should be the venue's responsibility, in my opinion, like you were saying.
Well, I can guarantee you that the big acts that play, the State Room or the new Commonwealth Room or wherever, those acts are not having to sell tickets. I mean, and then I have that, the funny thing is that I've had to explain this to my son. There is a certain amount of paying your dues in this sort of thing. There's a certain amount of free gigs you're going to play just to get your foot in the door, just to start to get an audience, you're going to be the opener band for the headliner. And you just got to get used to that. You're not going to be the be all end all, bag of chips right out of the gate, that you're super cool. You have to pay your dues, and holy crap, we did.
Yeah. Which I think is good for people though, because especially now the instant gratification like,
well, live music
movement.
is instant gratification. That's why I love it.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I'm saying like as a band, the fact that you have to pay your dues and you have to work hard and you have to stay committed and keep practicing is so much. I appreciate people who are still doing that as opposed to like, yeah, like really dedicating as opposed to, just jumping on stage and having it all.
In addition to that, I also think that the Salt Lake live music market, as far as the fans go, are a very educated group. And I think pretty much anybody in this town that goes to see live shows can sniff out in a second any type of band or artist that just mails it in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What venue do you miss the most? I'm just curious. In Salt Lake City, I mean, I guess that's a loaded question and a big question, but I'm just curious if there's one in particular that you miss.
Oh boy, there's two.
Okay,
but first place would be the Dead Goat Saloon.
That was a great place. Yeah, been there a couple times in my day.
Yeah, we had an amazing run there, like selling that place out. It was fabulous. And then second place would have been the Zephyr Club. And still to this day that it sits sad looking and vacant bums me out. But
do you know the quick story of Zephyr now that you brought that up? Because a lot of people, it's interesting. A lot of people post pictures, the Zephyr on the Brad Wheeler who from time to time will post, it's 15 years or 10 years, however long, it's been sitting there. A lot of people don't even know the story.
Yeah, I mean, all the businesses that are along that strip that were there, the whole thing is the same. My thought process on it, what I've heard, is just that whole block is just landlocked until an opportunity shows up to build some massive thing there.
Which is crazy that there hasn't been anything built there.
No, you might see it happen soon. And maybe whoever owns that property, that property is more advantageous to them as a tax loss write-off every year.
True. And I think there's a parking lot there. Maybe they're making bank with the parking lot.
I don't know about that, but they could be making some money. But I would just say it's a land use issue that, somebody's just sitting on it for the right time for the right thing.
And then Portical was on the other corner.
That's where the Borg building is now.
Yeah. Yeah. Portical was another good bar downtown. I don't think you got to experience that at all.
I did not. Yeah. I mean, I've heard of all of these places, but
yeah, our 2004 CD release party was at their big venue on the second floor at the Portical. So yeah, all of those. There were, like I said, this is like, let's circle back. Said there's just not as many places for new bands to break here. But on the flip side, I didn't have the internet to break on either back then.
Has Facebook changed, like with events and because people aren't having to make the homemade flyers like they used to?
Oh, I can tell you, back in the day, I would have a mailing list of like 900 to 1,000 people that I would put stamps on and labels on, postcards, and have the expense of mailing. So yeah, obviously the digital thing has really helped as far as expenses that way. But
do you think though, like I think Facebook almost gets overwhelming with events. It's like, oh, well, there's this to do, there's this to do, there's this to do. And you're oversaturated, overstimulated.
It's free and easy to put.
And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm just not going to do anything. Back in the day, back in the 90s, early 2000s, even when you would get one of your cards in the mail or something like that, you would put it on your fridge and you would look forward to it.
And that's kind of what I was kind of thinking about with when I was saying that it's more of an instant gratification is that like, do you think that because music is so much more accessible right now on the internet, that people aren't going out as much to see the music? And possibly that's why there's less clubs even?
I don't know. I could see that music is more accessible due to the internet and all that sort of thing. But there's something that cannot be replaced by a live music experience.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, why do you think the Red Butte concert series is freaking nuts every time? Or, I mean, I think this town does rally around the arts and live music or live theater. And I mean, why do you think, we built that massive new Eccles Theater that has a lot of great concerts there? And because we are a town that embraces our art scene. And and if I was to start a new band, be one kids out there, if I was 17 or 18 and starting a new band, I would still think this is a viable place to start a new band, because a lot of like my kids were exposed to that because their parents dug that sort of thing. And so I think in a lot of households in this town, kids have been programmed to know that live music is a cool thing. And both of my kids will tell me their first concert experience with their dad that they went to, and stuff like that. And obviously my household was a little bit different because they saw fabulous performances actually in the house. So
now you got a tour, the U.S. and Canada. Now, did you go outside of U.S. or Canada at all? Any Europe? Or?
You know what? There was a time in 1995 where we were like right on par with some of the other bands that actually hit it big. But on my 94 tour, my daughter's mother was pregnant with her at the time. And then people started having kids, and I had to make a fundamental decision if I'm going to be the rock star lifestyle forever and ever and ever, or if I'm going to be a responsible dad. And I just had bought a home in Murray in 1994. And
was that your goal with Insatiable, though? Was it to do it full time?
Obviously, I mean, if you go out on the road for like 3 months at a stretch, that has to be some type of a goal, right? To see what happens. So yes, obviously. And it was a very, it was an alluring lifestyle. It was fast paced. I mean, you'd end a show and you'd wake up, go in the van and fall asleep, and you wake up in the next morning in a different town. Places you would never, ever in a million years plan to go on vacation with and meet those people. You'd never plan to go to Belleville, Illinois, or Lancaster, Pennsylvania, or Okoboji, Iowa, or, any of these places, man. You'd show up, and these people would be appreciative of it. And yeah, that was very alluring. But also, you missed your grounding and your home front. And for me, I'm going to be starting a family super soon. And that's the route I took. And I ended up working with the fam business. But even during that time, after my daughter was born, we had good success of doing regional tours. You'd get in the van, you'd go take a week, and you'd go play Reno and Tahoe and then San Francisco, and drive up the 5 and play Portland and then Seattle, and then come around and play Boise and come home, You know
what's impressive about bands touring at that time? If you think about it for a second, there were no cell phones. There was no communication, even to say check up with a venue. I'm sure you pulled up plenty of times to venues and they'd be like, would act like they
I was thorough about that in the sense that we would call in the payphone, and you had your Rand McNally Atlas in the car.
True. And then what was there Maximum Rock and Roll had all kinds of different booking things where people can put on gigs and. Yeah,
there was no put it into our GPS or our MapQuest. There was none of that. But we managed to make it to all the shows just fine.
When was the last time you got to do any kind of touring? How long ago was that, Jeff?
8 years.
About 8 years. Do you miss that at all?
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's over with yet either, now that I'm freed up.
Aha, I like this guy's style. Do you have some plans to go on a tour, or is that top secret?
Well, I will say that we're going to do a run of shows in 2019 before some other major life changes come into play with me. So,
and when you say a run of shows, not just Utah, not just Salt Lake City.
I've put feelers out to some of the places, at least regionally, that we've done well at.
I like
in the past.
How many albums has Insatiable done?
4.
4 albums, and then this album you brought today. This is
it's number 3 out of 4.
Number 3 out of wow. My mind is sorry. I can edit this out.
I'm curious. When did you switch from saxophone to keyboard?
As soon as I hired better horn players than me.
Oh well, there you go. That's fair.
Do you play other instruments? Guitar?
I still know how to. No, I don't play guitar. I mean, you can't swing a dead cat around without hitting a guitar player. Who needs another one of those?
Did you always play keyboard, or did you learn piano growing up?
I learned piano growing up.
Okay.
My mother made me take piano lessons in 4th grade, and that made me learn sight reading and theory and all that. And then playing saxophone, I got a scholarship at the U playing saxophone. Yeah, so learning to play the piano at a young age really helped me. And then I hired horn players that really smoked. And plus I enjoyed the keyboards, and I love the reggae organ keyboard style that I've perfected, at least in my own style. So
yeah.
I know we kind of have jokingly talked about how big the ska scene was in Utah County. Do you have any thoughts on why?
Have you ever watched? You should put on your watch list of watching. There's a documentary out there about
I think
that.
we've talked about that before.
And
About a ska scene in Utah
in
County?
Utah County, yeah. I did an interview on it. In fact, it debuted. In fact, I was doing some clean out of my house, and it was about 10 years ago that it debuted at the Tower Theater. Yeah, there's a whole documentary about specifically that. And the thing about Utah County, as it was said in there, which I believe is it was the influx of Southern California kids to BYU at the time. And there was a ska scene going on down there, and they just kind of imported it up here, and then it just kind of blew up. Because basically in Utah County, nobody had anything better to do. And there was not many entertainment choices.
And the music's fun. You know, you could
It's
dance
super
to
fun.
it.
Yeah.
It's not like evil.
Is it called The Upbeat?
Yep.
Okay.
The Upbeat. We'll have to watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's venture in a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about this digital marketing thing you're doing, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Just because did you kind of have to create your own thing because of the music?
Well, being the band leader and also in my family business, I was always the marketer. So I've marketed tons of stuff.
Self-taught and all of that, or did you take any classes?
Pretty much self-taught, and then also immersing myself around some of the best minds all the time. So, going to conventions and keynote speakers and the likes of, seeing Gary Vaynerchuk speak live and, Scott Stratton and some of the, big ones, just immersing myself. I mean, I see a lot of colleges out there offering a social media degree. The second that you would be done with that, it'd be obsolete because I have to be on top of learning the change of algorithms and where the audiences are moving and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's a self-taught thing, but it's fun. And as you can probably tell at this moment right now in my life, I'm doing whatever I can to prevent myself from having a real job.
I know. I love it. And there's a lot of respect there. How long have you, so that's kind of what you've been doing for how many years?
About 4 years.
About 4 years. And what's the name of the company?
Social Dealer Connect, but I'm in a rebrand right now for myself. Everything's going to move over to Jeff Goes Social.
Which we were talking about before.
So you can find me on all platforms at Jeff Goes Social. So
are you taking on new clients ever? Or
yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Like if a listener was listening, what would they approach you for? What would be a reason they would hire you? Give me a couple examples.
From badassery.
No, do you work? Tell me give me an example of what you would do. Like say I was to reach out to you.
Well, it depends. I have a couple of specific things that I'm really good at. Number one, so I operate a lot in the furniture and design industry, and that goes full circle back to my family owning a furniture store. So in some of these furniture shows, like there's one in Las Vegas, there's one in High Point that I've worked at, and also I've worked now in the Atlanta show too. Imagine how I try to explain it. Imagine the Fashion Place Mall, 20 stories tall, times 3 buildings filled with cool stuff. So with those so imagine all these exhibitors there. So there's 4,000, for example, at the Las Vegas one, which is the next one coming up. I help them get their micro-target their message into the buyers' phones at the show. So try to drive traffic to their showroom. And that type of micro-targeting can also work here in town. So for example, at the business we're here today, we could draw a 3-mile circle around this business and target everybody within a demographic that might like the vaping thing.
Mm-hmm. Like via SMS?
Huh?
Via SMS, like text message?
Well, you could do it that way. So I usually hit them with that. You can do with email, but with the social, it just shows up in their phone as a sponsored ad.
Yeah,
oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Like a Facebook.
I've seen there's little gadgets where you can reach and target people via SMS in a certain area too. That's
I haven't heard anything. Have you heard of that? Like it's this little thing where you put it in your pocket, and then if you walk by somebody, it sends a text message to their. That seems kind of sketchy to me.
Yeah, that's a little
invasive.
That's a little invasive.
Is that? Do people use that?
I don't offer it. I think it's good enough if you're in a 1-mile zone attending a show to put somebody's message in your Facebook or Twitter or Instagram feed because you are there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you're a participant anyway. So I think that's fine. But, throwing messages into people's phones.
Like spamming them is not great.
Talking about, some product in Walmart or whatever. I think that crosses a line. I think we could even do 2 hours on this as far as privacy and the use of data and stuff like that. What I try to do the best is, first of all, I say you can buy, so let's go to the furniture industry. You can buy this couch from all of these people or something that looks similar to it. The question is, why you? That's where you humanize the brand and build brand trust and all those certain things. Because what people need to understand right now in the world of marketing is people will check out your digital assets long before they'll ever call you on the phone. In fact, there's a certain set of people right now that will never call you on the phone. Business transactions are done via Facebook Messenger or Instagram instant messaging or text message. Which is kind of sad that we don't get the type of thing that you and I are doing right now of just face-to-face talking about stuff, because some people are just completely desensitized to that, in my mind.
I remember the time you pick your phone up, you make a phone call. You got to call a friend up. You call you want to ask your girl out on a date. You got to call them up.
Yeah. And then they pull out in there and everybody's on the wall phone.
Yeah.
And with their brothers listening on the other extension, right?
And you got to remember numbers. Yeah.
Right now is like a really great time for introverts or people who are, easily persuaded by salesmen, or, people can go and do their own research and make their own decisions and buy the things on their time. So it's kind of cool. Like, I feel like it's a little bit easier for some of us who don't like a pressured, sales atmosphere to be able to get stuff and do transactions.
Yeah. Well, would you say though that kind of makes you kind of a pussy in a way? You can't talk to people.
You make a valid point, Jeff. You really do. It is kind of interesting. I think you had to learn, and I'm with you.
No, it's fair.
The introvert part, I understand that, but I also think you have to massage that muscle a little bit.
You do.
Right?
It's a good thing to massage, but like in growing up in my house, we had a saying, the phone is your friend, because all the kids in our house, like me and my sisters, were so afraid to talk to people on the phone. Like my mom would have to go, the phone is your friend. The phone is your friend. You can pick up the phone and talk. And, some people just have anxiety about it.
But did you find the more you did it, the easier it was?
No, I still don't like talking on the phone.
Well, do you think the anxiety about talking on the phone has been built up by our technology these days, that you don't have to?
I don't think so. I think it's just easier to be able to control your own environment, which maybe is a terrible thing. I'm just playing devil's advocate for fun here.
Yeah, no.
Well, I mean, honestly, that even goes back to my parenting thing, because I think of myself. I survived with no airbags. I survived with no car seat. I survived with no, being in the back of the big, huge sedan.
It was survival of the fittest then.
And I almost wonder that if I did my kids a disservice by they've been coddled so much. And
I do totally see that. Like, we really do coddle this next generation, especially.
I mean, I don't know. It is kind of interesting to think about all that stuff. I don't know if maybe there's just more people around. So people, there's more cars on the road. So people are more accidents. So then that's the car seat part comes.
I think we're more aware because there's so much more information, and information is more accessible. So we're all more paranoid about everything. I don't think we're totally going way off here, but this is fun. I don't think it's necessarily the world is less safe than it used to be.
Well, I grew up in the world of there was only 4 channels on the TV. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of even the whole part of the 0.05. You were making the joke about the new DUI thing here in Utah. And it's like, is that really going to, keep more drunk drivers off the roads? Is it going to be
I got to tell you that thing. For me, I think that type of information is good. And I'm not against that at all. Yeah. I think if anything causes people to pre-plan before their night out and be more responsible, I'm all for that. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if you're going to go out and party, the difference between 0.05 and 0.08 is probably negligible in a way, because either people that are getting pulled over for it, for the most part, are way beyond that.
True. So, it's just unfortunate for the people who have one drink at dinner.
Well, but see, the thing is, Jeff makes a valid point about people that are getting pulled over, where if you're having one drink at dinner, why are you getting pulled over? Right?
Well, but if you notice, the Utah Highway Patrol statement said, we are not going out of our way to pull anybody over for that, or we're not stocking bars or anything like that. But still, if your tail light is out, or if you if you make
if you're swerving,
if you're swerver or if you make an infraction, your headlights out. So it's just, if nothing else, I would say it empowers you to make sure all the lights on your car work. I always say, never give them a reason to pull you over in the first place.
Or just take
solid rule.
Just take an Uber. Just take an Uber, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
love
it's
Uber.
so easy.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
To take an Uber. Now back to your marketing, back to the whole digital thing. I have a lot of people listening, small business owners, people that are starting a business, whether they're starting or established. Is there any kind of advice? Like let's just give them a little nugget. Is there anything that you would get, like a piece of advice for marketing or anything of that you would tell them to do?
Well, I would say, number one, I'm the biggest flag bearer for just humanizing yourself. If you can do anything to build brand trust and to make people, like I said, it comes down to, I can buy a car from all these different places. Here we are in a vaping supply store. I can buy vaping places, from tons of places. What makes you different? What makes you different? It's because of who you are, that you're just a regular dude like me. You have the same interests as me. I would say your marketing has to do, everybody knows you're in business, but you kind of go back to the Gary Vaynerchuk thing, which is the jab, 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 right hook, or in easier way to say it is give, and take. So give good information, give, quality entertainment. Don't be pitchy at all, because people can smell that out a mile away. That's why we have the 10 o'clock news, because it's buy a car, buy a car, buy a car. Go to RC Willey, go to RC Willey, go to RC Willey, And people don't want that. They want to be entertained. That's why social media is still an escapism. And so the ads should be built around that type of thing, that you finesse the people rather than punch them in the face. You know what I mean? I pat you on the back, Chris, rather than bitch slap you about my product. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's more about relating with people nowadays than it used to be. Before it was very...
And then the other big thing that I would say is the differences back in our family furniture store. When the couch came in the wrong color, or our delivery guys put a hole in the wall, that used to be just a phone conversation between me and the customer. Today, it is a conversation between me and the customer and an arena, a basketball arena full of people watching how that conversation plays out.
You're talking like with social media,
Twitter,
Twitter, Facebook.
Yeah. People that actually, a lot of people will say, well, if you get a bad review or a bad something, or there's a bad conversation, delete it or get rid of it. Where I say, no, you handle it properly. You're timely. You get on top of it. Everybody in business knows you cannot be everything to everybody all the time. And then you also know that there's just people out there that are just inherent haters. And then the third thing, is most people who have a great experience in business, they'll just go on their merry way. It's the ones that get pissed off are the ones who can go home and rock their keyboard.
And that's the only people you hear from is the negative people.
So with that said, how the business owner reacts to that, and what I would say is react to it timely, address the problem. I'm sorry that we had this experience. This is a rare thing for us. We were very apologetic, and then get that crap offline and handle it offline as quick as possible.
Well, it's interesting too, because if people can see how you're treating customers that were upset, if they can see that you handled it well, that could potentially generate new customers who think, I want to work with these people because they're good to even their bad customers.
Exactly. That it's building a brand trust. How I say again, it's like take the U of U football stadium. You have this entire audience that follows you, that are dressed in your color because they're fans of you, and you're down by a field goal in the fourth quarter, and they want to be able to cheer for you to come back and kick it through with 5 seconds remaining.
Yeah.
What do you think of businesses that say refuse to do things like Facebook? They maybe don't have a Facebook page, and they're just like,
well, that's easy. That's easy. In my presentations that I do, I have a graphic of a phone, just a phone handset with nothing hooked to it. And I say, if you are trying to do business today without using social media, it's like doing business with the phone disconnected from the wall, period.
I like that. Because you get out, you were mentioning before we started recording, you speak at quite a few places.
Yeah, I've done speaking gigs across the country.
And you speak about social media, about digital marketing. Very cool.
public speaking, it's actually much more frightening than playing in a ska band. At least I have 7 or 8 other guys backing me up. So if I blew a chord, nobody notices.
Because all the eyes are on you when you're speaking.
I would say public,
zipper's down.
Just you have to engage with the people and not have people nod off and stuff like that.
Yeah, you have to be on.
Yeah, I would say it's performing. It is performing. It's
absolutely.
Engaging with people. And I would say it is a way further down, but still on the same type of lines as stand-up comedy.
Oh, yeah.
It's just you.
I believe it.
It's just you and the audience.
And you're being judged the whole time.
Exactly.
What do you find most companies kind of lack, or what's one thing that you end up telling most companies to kind of do with their social media? Is there like a big hole that most people miss?
Well, number one is consistency.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people like, social media is the afterthought. And then they just blast a whole bunch of stuff in a row, and then they go dark for 3 months. And then they remember it again. So consistency is huge. Also, organizational skills. I always promote a content calendar, so you know exactly what you're going to talk about each day. Check your analytics to know what posts that you do are doing well, which one have bombed and why, and what days and times your audience. I mean, every business's audience is going to be different. And then on top of that, every business's audience on different platforms are going to be different too. Mm-hmm. There's a different audience on Facebook than on Instagram or Twitter or on Pinterest or all of those places. So you need to be aware of that. And yes, it is daunting, and you have to be on top of algorithm changes and policy changes and all sorts of things. I mean, this is like a real interesting time in social media with the data. Data's bad with Facebook and how they've handled things. And so it's kind of a down time, I would say, as far as the public consumer confidence on social media is low right now.
But that's why people hire you, people like you, because you know how to do all those checks of the analytics and content. I mean, people that just have to run their business, that's the last thing they have time
and
for.
Whereas I do a lot of work, obviously, in this furniture design industry, I'm happy to help people out here in town. I have a automotive repair. I just took on a autistic services company. They help autistic children, which has been a real mind blower as far as learning stuff. I've worked on 3 campaigns. So the principles of social media, if they're applied, they can be applied across the board through multiple types of businesses or ventures or whatever you're trying to do. Marketing has been my life because from back in the day with the band, I mean, I've been a hustler. I've been trying to get the gigs, try to get the jobs and hustling. You got to work. Yeah. No matter what you do. I don't care how much technology is there. If you don't work it, you're screwed. So
and there's a lot of respect for you for how much you've gotten out and hustled. I mean, just even your stories, how you were saying, putting all the stamps on the postcards and mail list. I mean, there's a lot of respect there. Let's kind of shift just a little bit to Salt Lake City. There's a couple Salt Lake City related questions we like to ask. If you could change anything about Salt Lake, what would you change? Is there anything you would change?
That's a good question. I'm going to flip that back at you because I like here and being here and actually traveling and explaining why I like here, because we have a unique situation here that is not emulated anywhere else. So, for example, we have a diversity right now that's coming in with all of the new people that are moving in. What are we, one of the first or second fastest growing areas in the country still?
That's why, I hear that at least, And I-15 shows me that when I go on it.
When you try to drive anywhere?
Yeah, but we have that going on. So we have this influx of folks coming in here who have never experienced what I, as a lifer here, have experienced as far as what I'd call, obviously the influence of religion here. So what I'd call the counterbalance of either you're in or you're way out, which is never, I've never found that anywhere else, that there's just like this counterbalance of groups or a counterculture that is created by here, which I think is fun and really healthy. I mean, who would have ever thought that Salt Lake City would have one of the biggest and most vibrant gay pride celebrations in the country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, who would ever thought that? That is created by the counterculture that is unique to us. So having people come in and adding to that mix and discovering that for the first time, I kind of like it. So what would I change? Part of me doesn't want to change anything because it's always interesting how that works. I would change the ability for us all who just voted for Prop 2 to have it messed with right away.
I can respect
I would
that
change.
too,
I would change that. If the people speak, the people speak. So shut up and put up because the people spoke. And if you made the law, if somebody made the law that we could put a referendum out there and vote for something and go through all those crazy hoops that those people had to go through to get that on the ballot, and then turns out the way it turned it out, that's what I would change.
Something messed up
Yeah,
about
that was
absolutely.
crazy.
So, I mean, I would be curious, and that would be something that everybody at home could research, is look at your representative, whoever represents you in Utah, and look at the voting results in your voting district and find out if the people in your voting district voted for Prop 2 and if your representative voted to mess with it. That would be an interesting thing in my mind. I would say that would be the number one thing, is for some of these gray areas as far as religion and politics to be separated a little bit more. And then if the people speak, and if we're going to allow people of a diverse population to move in here, which we are, which I think is freaking fantastic, then we should allow those people who have, pay their taxes, that are citizens of the state of Utah, to speak their mind. Mm-hmm. And when they do speak their mind should be honored.
Very well put. Very well put. What about any favorite local eating spots? I always like to kind of, hey, where do you like to eat at? Just kind of even give a little plug for some of the mom and pop joints in town.
Jeff's house.
Hey, all right. Do you take reservations? Because we're free tonight.
Are you a pretty mean chef? Do you like
Jeff works, yep. Oh, actually, one of the best Thai restaurants in all of Utah is in Murray, so I'll give props to the Tea Rose Cafe.
I've had a heck of a conversation with you today, Jeff. I know we just skimmed the surface with everything, but when we only have so much time to sit here and chat with you and record.
Well, if I could just say one more thing.
Sure, man.
And one thing that we did not touch on that I would like to talk to people out there in your illustrious audience, your well-educated, smarty pants audience.
Way to butter them up.
I've been very passionate about community service.
That's right. You mentioned that. Yeah.
So I would say to all those folks out there, as we start a new year, and I'm happy to be one of your first guests in 2019, is to look of how you can give back to your community, how you can help out. Because there's a lot of folks out there that need help. And I think there's nothing wrong ever with increasing your good karma points, for sure. So think about any way you can give back to your community. I've had so many great experiences of giving back to the citizens of Murray. And I would say find out, who your representative is or who your leaders are or what's going on, and just ask people how you can help.
We've actually had people reach out to us asking, hey, do you have any recommendations of places I can volunteer at? Mm-hmm. Do you have, where is there a place that you like to volunteer at or work with?
Well, I like my neighbor 2 houses down from me in Murray. She is the director of the In-Between.
Not familiar with that, no.
Well, that is a service where homeless people can go and find lodging that are terminally ill, and they give them end of days care and a proper service. So, you're not finding them frozen under the viaduct type of thing. And I think that's she was actually, her name's Kim Korea, was voted, some awards, nonprofit of the year person. So
how would they get in touch with her? Is there a website or
just, get on your Facebook, put in the In-Between, and it'll pop up.
I guess, yeah. I wasn't sure if they
and then what's another one? So my birthday is coming up this Thursday.
Well, happy birthday.
And you know how some people do fundraisers for their birthday.
On Facebook.
And my friend Janice, who owns the Pier Pump place in downtown, I helped with the Rack Pack Foundation. And that's a foundation for breast cancer and breast cancer survivors. So I'm going to do that as my fundraiser for my birthday.
Gosh, I should have done one of those on Facebook. I see them, but sometimes I wonder, is it good to donate that way or just go directly to the place?
Well, I don't care. Just do it.
Maybe research, find a local place that you really like what they do, find out who they are. And
I mean, that all comes back to community service and taking care of the peeps. I mean, I'm a very lucky person that I have a home, I have a roof, I have a great family, I have an amazing friend network that I just added 2 badass mofos to right here. So I'm a very lucky person, and I always say that there's would be 1,000 people or tens of thousands of people that would line down my Murray Street, down 54th, on I-15 all the way to your guys' house that would trade me places in a second. So I'm a blessed person, and I need to remind myself that and, pay it forward whenever possible.
I'll put the links at iamsaltlake.com with this episode so people can, connect with you for Insatiable and stuff like that, or just your digital. But run down, what's the best way for listeners to find out more about you, Jeff? Find out more about
At Jeff Goes Social.
Simple enough. And like you were saying, across all social media. Right?
Yeah. And then on top of that, my band, if everybody loves the Insatiable, and, for those that have been fans for years and years and years, and those that want to find out for the first time, we're going to do a run of shows, probably starting late February, early March. I'm just finalizing that right now. And so the Facebook page is facebook.com/insatiable-ska.
And then that's going to be the best place. Connect there. And then that way they'll know where the shows are, I guess.
Yep. And as soon as I have those shows planned, if you go there, I'll be like a bad rash on your Facebook feed. Okay.
Very
awesome.
Cool. Christina likes to end the episode out with a question. I'll let her
Yes,
take
before
it
we
away
get going,
there.
would you leave one piece of life advice for our listeners?
Oh, and I was so stoked and prepared for what did your childhood smell like?
Okay, first let's find out what your childhood smelled like.
It's funny because I started this a little differently, and every time I do that, people always get bummed out that I don't bring that question up. What did your childhood smell like, Jeff?
Come on, I was so ready for that. Sulfur.
Ooh, that's
mine kind of did too.
That's kind of.
Did your family have a well?
No.
Okay.
I'm talking about blowing stuff up.
I was
you were a
thinking
bit of a pyro,
water.
maybe.
No, it started with the cap gun. Did you ever have a cap gun?
Of course.
You could smell that, and then unfortunately, well, it was fun at the time, but my cousin taught me how to make gunpowder.
Okay.
Oh my!
From scratch.
I'm assuming you still know how to make gunpowder.
I absolutely do not. So,
or off recording, we'll talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh,
So life advice.
Yeah, life advice. Don't blow stuff up. That's a good place to
try
start.
not to blow stuff up. Keep all your fingers intact. It just goes back to life advice. Give as much as you can, and you will receive. Don't expect any friendship or anything to give back to you, but it will tenfold if you just give without expectations of giving back. I know that sounds sappy and you hear that type of crap all the time, but that's seriously how you have to operate. I like to give music. I like to give service. I like to be a loving person, and I'm very fortunate to have, again, like I said, a great friend network, a great family, wonderful people around me, and I'm blessed, and I try to project that out. And I'll be the first person to say that I am far from perfect when it comes to that. Yeah. So
it's a hard thing to do, but it makes you just a better, happier, more fulfilled person.
Look she hasn't said a word, but Jody's here, my handler, and she's already told me not to squeak my boots under the table already. And I'm happy to have a good friend like that. That's who I care for very much. And I'm just lucky. I'm a lucky guy. So I'd like to pay it forward. And even an opportunity like this to be on a podcast and then a few days down the road, find you on Stitcher and have me put myself to sleep will be awesome.
I've had a heck of a conversation with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming and doing this. I always tell people, I like to bring people back through here, even if a year or so down the road we reconnect, Jeff, and do another podcast. We might have to do that.
All right, great.
So thank you so much.
Many thanks again to Jeff Evans for joining us on this episode of the podcast. All the links to connect with Jeff can be found on our website, iamsaltlake.com/365.
Hey, before we get into our weekly recommendations, I wanted to tell you that to start sending in your questions, as Christina and I want to do another Q&A episode, but this time we want to release it just for our Patreon supporters. So however you're connected, I know I might be opening up a can of worms, so to say, where, you can send us messages on Facebook, Twitter, whatever, or our email, hello@iamsaltlake.com. Send us your questions. I want to say no questions off limits. Do we want to say that?
I mean, let's say no questions are off limits. However,
let's not get perverted.
We may have to be selective about answering some of them.
Yeah, I guess we don't want to really, who did you kill or what's your favorite drug?
I really don't want to talk about the bodies I buried. But other than that, let's go for it.
Yeah, so send them on in. I'm guessing maybe about another month or so we'll probably do this thing. So maybe by the end of February, stop sending your questions in. Or maybe
stop talking to us.
Or maybe this will be a regular thing that we do, right? But anyway, it's our time for our weekly recommendations. This has been a really fun thing that we've done where Christina and I get to, every week recommend something, and it might be something we're recently enjoying or discovered or that we already enjoy in our daily life. And this is kind of fun because this is a keto themed recommendation where I'm going to recommend one of my favorite keto podcasts. I know it's the beginning of the year. A lot of you are New Year's resolutions, right? And you all of a sudden want to do keto and think you're going to lose 500 pounds.
Which you might.
There is a podcast I listen to called Keto Talk with Jimmy Moore and Dr. Will Cole. Excellent podcast. They basically, tell some headlines of what's going on with keto in the news. Basically, they try to debunk some false information, answer questions. Really great show. It's called Keto Talk with Jimmy Moore and Dr. Will Cole, and you can listen to it in any podcast player. So however you're listening to this podcast right now. What's your recommendation, Christina?
So my recommendation is actually the Keto Made Easy cookbook. I got to pick it up over here. Hold on. It is by Mega Barrett and Matt. I cannot say their names, but they're great.
Mega and Matt. Keto Connect, I think is, I love their YouTube videos. So when we saw this book, I think we picked it up at Target or something like that.
Yeah.
Right?
We were like, because you're like, I follow these guys. They're great. And okay, disclaimer, I'm not officially keto, but I'm fascinated with cooking keto and baking keto. Like, for some reason, I just love doing it. So we just got this cookbook, and tonight I'm actually going to make chewy chocolate chip cookies from the Keto Made Easy cookbook.
You said you were going to make them last night, so I'm holding you to it tonight.
I'm really going to do it tonight.
We're going to put a link for this, though, at iamsaltlake.com/365 for this episode, so you can check it out and at least read the reviews. And if you want to buy it, you can buy it right there.
It's got a lot of really awesome recipes. Yeah, it's a cool thing. That's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Don't forget to support our show sponsors for this episode: Wizarding Days, Five Wives Vodka, and Market Source Real Estate.
Also, I want to challenge each and every one of you. Tell one friend this week about this podcast. Our advertising budget is very thin. So that's our advertising budget, is us telling you.
Us asking you to tell people.
Well, no, I mean, that's the only way this podcast is going to grow.
It's
right?
true.
Tell a friend, share it on social media, whatever it takes. Let's each bring one new listener to the podcast this week.
And you can always send us an email to say hello at hello@iamsaltlake.com. If you want to send us a physical letter, package, or cookies,
please
cookies. You can send it to P.O. Box 4412, Salt Lake City, Utah 84110.
All right, you guys have a great week. Make sure to get out and enjoy the city, support local, and we're going to see you on that next episode.
And good night, Grammy.